12 strangers, and a single decision that holds a life in the balance. Hey everyone, welcome back to Movies on the Brain. I'm Jason, and today I'm visiting one of the most gripping and tightly constructed films ever put to screen, 12 Angry Men from 1957, directed by Sidney Lumet. With powerhouse performances from Henry Fonda, Lee J. Cobb, E.G. Marshall, Jack Klugman, and more, this black and white classic proves you don't need explosions or elaborate sets to build suspense. Just a table, a storm outside, and 12 very different perspectives colliding under pressure. Let's take a look at the film that turned deliberation into drama. Now, I was not able to find numbers on how it did theatrically, except it was released on April 10th, 1957, with a budget of $337,000. It found its audience in rentals, though, and made $2 million in just rentals alone. On a hot summer day in the New York County Courthouse, the trial phase just concluded for an impoverished 18-year-old boy accused of killing his abusive father. The judge instructs the jury that if there is a reasonable doubt, the jurors must return a verdict of not guilty. If the defendant is found guilty, he will receive a mandatory death sentence via the electric chair. The verdict must be unanimous. At first, the case seems clear. A neighbor testified to witnessing the defendant stab his father from her window through the windows of a passing elevator train. Another neighbor testified he heard the defendant threaten to kill his father and the father's body hitting the floor. Then, as he ran to the door, he saw the defendant running down the stairs. The boy had recently purchased a switchblade of the same type that was found, wiped the fingerprints at the murder scene, but claimed he lost it. In the preliminary vote, all jurors vote guilty except Juror 8, who believes there should be some discussion before the verdict. He says he cannot vote guilty because reasonable doubt exists. When his first arguments, including producing a recently purchased knife nearly identical to the murder weapon that was thought to be unique, seemingly failed to convince any of the other jurors, Juror 8 suggests a secret ballot from which he will abstain. If all the other jurors still vote guilty, he will acquiesce. The ballot reveals one not guilty vote. Juror 9 reveals that he changed his vote. He respects Juror 8's motives and agrees that there should be more discussion. Juror 8 argues that the train noise would have obscured everything the second witness claimed to have overheard. Jurors 5 and 11 changed their votes. Jurors 5, 6, and 8 further question the second witness's story and question whether the death threat was figurative speech. After looking at a diagram of the witness's apartment and conducting an experiment, the jurors determine that it is impossible for the disabled witness to have made it to the door in time. Juror 3, infuriated, argues with and tries to attack Juror 8, yelling a death threat. Jurors 5, 6, and 7 physically restrain Juror 3. Jurors 2 and 6 change their votes. The jury is now evenly split. Juror 4 doubts the defendant's alibi, as the boy did not recall specific details. Juror 8 tests Juror 4's own memory to make a point. Jurors 2 and 5 point out the father's stab wound was angled downward, although the boy was shorter than his father. Juror 7 changes his vote out of impatience rather than conviction, angering Juror 11. After another vote, Jurors 1 and 12 also change sides, leaving only 3 guilty votes. Juror 10 goes on a bigoted rant, causing Juror 4 to forbid him to speak for the remainder of the deliberation. When Juror 4 is pressed as to why he still maintains a guilty vote, he declares that the woman who saw the killing from across the street stands as solid evidence. Juror 12 reverts to a guilty vote. After watching Juror 4 remove his glasses and rub the impressions they made on his nose, Juror 9 realizes that the first witness was constantly rubbing similar impressions on her own nose indicating that she also was a habitual glasses wearer, even though she chose not to wear them and wear glasses in court. Juror 8 remarks that the witness, who was trying to sleep when she saw the killing, would not have had glasses on or the time to put them on, making her story questionable. Jurors 4, 10, and 12 all changed their votes, leaving Juror 3 as the sole dissenter. After failing to convince the others of his argument, Juror 3 finally reveals that his strained relationship with his own son is the reason why he voted guilty. After ripping up a photograph of himself and his son in a fit of rage, he breaks down in tears and changes his vote to not guilty. As the others leave, Juror 8 graciously helps Juror put on his coat. The defendant is acquitted off screen. As the jurors leave the courthouse, Jurors 8 and 9 reveal their surnames to each other before parting ways. Now let's look at the cast and some of their other roles they've had. Martin Balsam as Juror 1. Before his passing in February of 1996, other roles for Martin Balsam include Detective Milton Arbogast in Psycho, the judge in 1991's Cape Fear, and Major Briggs in Brothers in Blood. John Fielder as Juror Number 2. Before his passing in June of 2005, other roles for John Fielder include The Old Man in The Emperor's New Groove, Lawyer Daggett in 1969's True Grit, and Piglet in the Winnie the Pooh franchise until 2005. Lee J. Cobb as Juror Number 3. Before his passing in February of 1976, other roles for Lee J. Cobb include Johnny Friendly in On the Waterfront, Chief Harold F. Robinson in Boomerang, and Lieutenant Kinderman in 1973's The Exorcist. E.G. Marshall as Juror Number 4. Before his passing in August of 1998, other roles for E.G. Marshall include Colonel Rufus S. Bratton in Tora Tora Tora, Art Smith in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and John Mitchell in Nixon. Jack Klugman as Juror Number 5. Before his passing in December of 2012, other roles for Jack Klugman include Dr. R. Quincy M.E. in the TV show Quincy M.E., Arthur in What Do We Eat, and Jimmy in Dear God. Edwin Benz as Juror Number 6. Before his passing in December of 1990, other roles for Edward Benz include Captain Junket in North by Northwest, Mr. Kingsley in Whatever It Takes, and Wally Powers in the TV show It Takes a Thief. Jack Warden as Juror Number 7. Before his passing in July of 2006, other roles for Jack Warden include Edward O'Neill in The Replacements, Saul in While You Were Sleeping, and Old General Zevo in Toys. Henry Fonda as Juror Number 8. Before his passing in August of 1982, other roles for Henry Fonda include Norman Thayer Jr. in On Golden Pond, Tom Joad in The Grapes of Wrath, and Gil Carter in The Oxbow Incident. Joseph Sweeney as Juror Number 9. Before his passing in November of 1963, other roles for Joseph Sweeney include the Reverend in The Fastest Gun Alive, Edward M. Schultz in The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit, and Emery in the TV show Armstrong Circle Theater. Ed Begley as Juror Number 10. Before his passing in April of 1970, other roles for Ed Begley include Boss Finley in Sweet Bird of Youth, Captain Wilson in Hang 'em High, and Kermit Dodd in A Time to Sing. George Voskovec as Juror Number 11. Before his passing in July of 1981, other roles for George Voskovec included Dr. Gerald Finney in Somewhere in Time, Herman Palmeyer in Barbarossa, and Aaron Nathanson in Wind Across the Everglades. Robert Weber as Juror Number 12. Before his passing in May of 1989, other roles for Robert Weber include General Denton in The Dirty Dozen, Harvey in Right is Wrong, and Colonel Clay Thornbush and Private Benjamin. I like that the movie starts when the jury needs to decide if a man is guilty or not. It really sets the stage for what's bound to be a tense movie. During the slow fade out of the man whose fate is in the jury's hand is the perfect choice. I do like that we are getting right into it. The preliminary vote before they start discussing. Being 11-1 means they have to convince the one to change his mind, or the one has to convince the others to change their minds, because it has to be unanimous. I like the way they decide to try to convince juror 8. Each person go around and explain why they think the kid is guilty. Smart storytelling, in my opinion. Being able to find a knife exactly like the murder weapon, not far from where the murder took place, is fantastic for the boy, and the commotion it brought amongst the other jury members was fantastic. Now for jury to convince them that maybe the boy is not guilty seems to be the task at hand. I'm liking the chemistry between all 12 men here. They all play very well off of each other. Using the elevator train to try to prove the boy's innocence is absolutely brilliant. Now, I haven't ever lived by an elevated train, but the railroad tracks that I live near, while they're passing, it's hard to hear anything, let alone what the old man says he heard in the apartment above him in this case. Juror number 9 being observant and intelligent only helping about the witnesses is only helping juror 8's case and finding the boy not guilty. Absolutely brilliant acting by Joseph Sweeney. The reaction of the old man witnesses' reaction time was one of the best scenes I've seen in this movie so far. But again, the chemistry between all 12 men is incredible. All the jurors turning their backs to juror 10 is an incredible scene because they're all tired of him spouting off that the kid is guilty just because of where he came from. Absolutely phenomenal acting by Ed Begley in that scene. Lee J. Cobb being the only one still holding on to a guilty verdict, and his blow up and falling breakdown after seeing the picture of his son is fantastic acting by him. I can honestly see why this. I can honestly understand why this is regarded as one of the greatest movies of all time. Fantastic film, phenomenal acting from everyone involved, and honestly, just an overall masterpiece. Now let's look at some fun facts and trivia I found about this movie. Director Sidney Lumet had the actors all stay in the same room for several hours on end and use their lines over and over without filming. This was to give them a real taste of what it would be like to be cooped up in a room with the same people. At the beginning of the film, the cameras are all positioned above eye level and mounted with wide-angle lenses to give the appearance of greater distance between the subjects. As the film progresses, the cameras slip down to eye level. By the end of the film, nearly all of it is shot below eye level in close-ups and with telephoto lenses to increase the encroaching sense of claustrophobia. Because the film failed to make a profit, Henry Fonda never received his deferred salary. Despite this setback, he always regarded this film as one of the three best he ever made. The others being The Grapes of Wrath and The Oxbow Incident. Because of the painstaking rehearsals for the film lasted an exhausting 2 weeks, filming had to be completed in an unprecedented 21 days. Henry Fonda disliked watching himself on film, so he did not view the whole film in the screening room. However, before he walked out, he said quietly to director Sidney Lumet, "Sidney, it's fantastic. This film is commonly used in business schools and workshops to illustrate team dynamics and conflict resolution techniques." With the death of Jack Klugman, juror number 5, on December 24th, 2012, none of the 12 jurors from the film are alive. The entire movie, excluding the exterior shots, take place in 3 rooms. Jack Klugman considered this film his favorite of his career that he's ever done. And that wraps up my thoughts on 12 Angry Men, a film that doesn't just challenge the characters in the room, but challenges us as viewers to listen, to question, and to stand firm when it matters most. It's a rare kind of storytelling, one that begins in silence and ends in quiet conviction. A reminder that even in the simplest setting, the power of reason can still carry weight. If enough people ask for it, I'll gladly take a look at the 1997 remake as well, and see how it stands up next to this timeless classic. Thanks for watching Movies on the Brain. I'm Jayson, and I'll see you next time, where the conversation never ends when the credits roll.